I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about the nature of the challenge as we hear it from our UK local authority and public sector customers around realising and tackling the issues of channel shift and the opportunities that exist therein. We'll come on in other materials to talk specifically about how My Council Services enables UK local authorities to tackle those challenges, but I just want to spend a few minutes describing the challenges as we see them and as we hear them described back to us. So the proposition and the challenge is that there is a significant majority of processes and transactions within a UK local authority organisation, within a UK public sector organisation, that can be made self-service and deployed effectively as a set of business rules that does not require professional judgment and does not require human discretion in order for them to happen effectively and efficiently. The contention is that that's probably somewhere in 80% of all customer facing and crucially internal processes. So much further back in the process when a customer may have raised an issue and you're then in the business of dealing with it. So both customer facing and internal. You may argue the percentage, you may argue that it's 60% or 75%, but the point is that the significant majority of cases can and should be automated and made self-service. The flip side to that, of course, is that there is a significant minority, and in this example we'll say and accept 20% of cases, or at least specific aspects of certain types of case, where both professional judgment and the opportunity for human discretion is incredibly important. So the manifold challenge for UK public service organisations is not only how do you enable automation and how do you enable self-service, but how do you make sure you're doing that in a sustainable, safe and appropriate way, and that you can tease that 80% that's appropriate for automation and self-service and separate it from the remainder that is not, and make sure that those two things happen fluidly and there's a seamless handoff and segue from one to the other. So not a simple challenge. If we think about that more graphically, we put that into a pyramid shape where the base of that pyramid, the width of the base of that pyramid in particular, relatively describes the volume of cases of a certain type that are being processed. So at the bottom where you've got a wide pyramid, that would suggest relatively high volume. And our suggestion and our observation is that relatively high volume service request types, things that customers want and need to do through and with their local authority, often, if they're high volume, tend to be lower complexity. Now, there are numerous examples that are an exception to that generalization, but as a general principle, there is a body of relatively high volume, relatively lower complexity transaction types that lend themselves readily to automation. That might be in a borough or district authority context, something like reporting a fly tip, or in a unitary and or shire level authority, we might think about something like reporting a pothole. These are things that happen a lot. They are at high volume and the reporting process actually is quite straightforward. Now, a couple of things are at play alongside that which are important for considering. One is as you get decreasing volume as you move up the pyramid scale into different types of transaction, alongside that decreasing volume, you will often see increasing complexity. Again, I offer the caveat and say that there are always one or two exceptions where actually volumes are relatively high and complexity is high. And you could probably all think of examples of those if you're minded to sit and watch this video. But nonetheless, the general proposition is that at the base of the pyramid, high volume, low complexity, and these things generally lend themselves to quite readily to automation. They're appropriate for channel shift, they're appropriate for self-service, and they're things that, certainly using the technology that we provide, can be made real very quickly and very easily and at very low cost. As you push up, there are more considerations at play. So if you want then to start enabling online and app-based payments of, say, a standard invoice, or for someone to complete a comprehensive change of request process, there's more factors, there are more moving parts in those sorts of processes, and they require more planning from a self-service deployment perspective. They can certainly be done, but there's more planning around the process and how that's going to work. Alongside that, what you tend to get is as you move up the pyramid of complexity and the shifting volume, so you will see either increased real or increased perceived risk. And if it's perceived risk, you may bump into what we describe as cultural or behavioural resistance. The bad news there is that technology cannot help you solve those issues of behaviour and cultural resistance and organisational change. They are issues that must be tackled, and you have to bring people with you, and you have to convince people, often through evidence-based work that's already been done, that these things can be done safely and at minimal risk. But that's a leadership and a operational challenge rather than a technical challenge. Everything else that's represented on this graphic, we would argue, is something that technology can help you do, and in other content that we have available on the site, we'd like to share with you how.